Before, after. Feedback can do wonders, can't it? Hey friendos, it's DW. Before I get into the continued journey of me creating my video game here, I want to thank everyone for commenting on the last video. It really meant a lot to me, and there was so much great wisdom and genuinely good advice that just really stuck to me. And I want to thank everyone for doing it. And I actually am going to highlight one of those comments at the end of this video today. Stick around to the end if you want, but thanks so much for commenting, every single one of you. The last video, I talked about how I made the wrong game. And let me clarify, it wasn't the wrong game. It's just a different game. Realistically, I did make a game. It just didn't test the things I wanted it to test out in terms of the gameplay loop. But it taught me a lot of different things about it. More specifically is how important the feedback loop is. See, with that feedback, I was able to see the weaknesses in my design and figure that out much, much earlier. Like way earlier than, where I want to get this thing out the door closer to the end of the year. With that feedback, I challenged myself after that meeting to do something different. Number one was to see if I could get the gameplay loop working without any dialogue. Could I actually build the game in my head without leveraging dialogue as a primary mechanic? Second thing is, which is a bit more of a meta bit of it, could I do this rapidly? I had spent a good probably 2 months or 3 months working on that original demonstration thing in Godot, and that's a whole other topic. Not to say that was a bad thing, but I don't have another 2 or 3 months to just keep going on it. I needed to rapidly iterate on this gameplay to see if it could work or not. So that was a big thing that needed to come out of this next iteration on the project. So where do I start? I started with my documentation. When I went through the GDD, I could see where it started to go wrong. Design document itself had a nice high-level description of the game, but it didn't talk about the tension or enough about the gameplay, about the fantasy or what was driving the player to play. That's something I didn't realize I hadn't been doing in many of even my fun little GDDs in my spare time and game jam projects and stuff. I wasn't getting that stuff written down. So you might argue, does it really matter that it's not written down in a GDD? Without being able to communicate the idea to myself, how am I going to be able to communicate that to other players or players in general or other developers or potential publishers or marketers or team members that I want to bring on board? The communication aspect is critical. That's why the GDD not having the right message really showed the weakness in the design. So the second question was, what does the game look like without dialogue? Like you can see in the older demo, there's a lot of dialogue and it reads like a visual novel, or it looks like a visual novel. I wanted to see if I could just remove all that dialogue. So I kind of put on my old user experience developer hat from way back in the day and started drawing things. I started in PowerPoint, which is my go-to way back in the day, but it wasn't robust enough. Went into the GIMP, started drawing some boxes and rectangles in there, just black and white, nothing's fancy. Did some digging at the GameUIDatabase.com. That's an amazing site. If you want to just see screens, shout out to them. And I came up with this. So what you're seeing here is a mock-up that I drew in the GIMP. I created a mock-up of what the player would be seeing while they're playing the core part of the game. If you look already on the right-hand side, you can already say I broke my first rule that I already stated. Hey, you said no dialogue. And you're right, I did say no dialogue. However, in looking at Papers, Please, which is really the good framework that I'm using for this game, there is a chat log, right? And you look at these games where there's desktop interfaces or hacking games like Hacknet and different things like that, you see that there is a chat log to kind of allow the player some minimal interaction with whatever entity they're dealing with. In our case, it's a passenger. And it actually applies to the gameplay. And that's the core loop of the gameplay. Now, where are the systems? Like, what drives the player? Great question. I'm glad you asked. What drives the player is there's an efficiency aspect and an effectiveness aspect. So efficiency being this, you can see this little stat total up here, how long this has taken, and you also have this session timer. Because being the last AI or the last human in an AI automated airport, you need to be as efficient and as effective as a machine. That's the idea. So the more time you take trying to find all the violations, the less effective you might be, not being able to scan all the little details. Now that's the core system that kind of drives the game. You have efficiency and effectiveness, and they kind of conflict with one another. And the better you get, the more you are like the AI. You are as efficient. However, you are a human being. You are not an AI in this fully automated airport. And so there's a third element that can play into this, and that's compassion. Now, going back to the mock-up, I specifically chose this one. That's why it's the simplest of policies. They said hairy turtles, full legal name, but that is technically incorrect. Now, AI, bam, they're going to end that. However, being a human, maybe you don't think it's that bad. And this is the interesting bit of the game, is this compassion element, because that's the other driving force, is maybe I think this person should get a pass. And there's an emergent story element that can come from these various passengers in a couple different ways that I'm still experimenting with. But that is the interesting bit of the game, is where you can there's 3 different ways to drive the player to go forward using the same gameplay systems. And what I find most interesting about all of this is that whole analysis came out of a mock-up, just a single static image with some layering in it. And I think there's something to be said about how taking that time to draw it all out and make it happen early on before writing a single line of code can help you get to where you need to go, or at least figure out where you need to go with your implementation. And from that mockup, I bring you this. I know this doesn't look the same. I kind of iterated on it more, but this is running as a TypeScript application that's just running locally on my machine. You can see here's the rules. We got federal policies and daily policies, and I click on it to give it a highlight, and then I start. So you can see my timer starts going, and then I call someone over. There you go. There's hairy turtles. Did it wrong. I can click on this, and you can see I can kind of highlight what policy I want, and that is stated full legal name must match. And right now I have it saying correct. You've identified that. You can click on other things too. Registered bags. I got some other policies that I was playing with, and there's this organic material bit as well, which I'm not going to get into. But right now I'm just going to deny Harry, and then you're good. Call another passenger over, and now we have this new thing again. Mara Ivans did the wrong thing, and we deny passenger. Call passenger. We can click C again, and we just kind of keep going through this. And you can there's a secondary screening button, so you have another option, and I can elaborate that on another video. I'm still working through what that actually means. But ultimately, you just kind of keep going through all of these different passengers, and you get this little review screen. A lot more detail here. We can see the idea here is how efficient you are. So you have a little statement here. This needs to be worked through, but you get a little shift complete statement saying, hey, here's how well you did. You get a little statement. You get some stats about how well you did. You see if you did which ones you did correctly, which ones you missed. And you can see there's a couple here. If I go through, there's actually 2 violations for Harrison turtles. And so there's an interesting kind of bit about how you can win this. And ultimately, this is your performance will give you money, and that money will act as a resource you can use to do different things with throughout the game that I'm kind of playing with in my head. Again, not so much the keeping my family alive level, but more rather, how do I improve myself and get myself out of this situation, all while proving that AI is not the ultimate end-all goal for everything we need to do for humanity. What you got to see was a very polished version of what I'd been working on, but I had another meeting with a marketing expert in gaming about a week and change later after that first one that went with the wrong game. So I came back with some screenshots and a bit of a prototype going, this is what the game looks like, here's how it feels. And I was able to communicate that really well to the marketing person. And she reacted very positively, like, I see where this game is going, here's some ideas about that. And we got in a really good dialogue about how to get this game noted. And that was amazing. The other bit is that I was able to communicate the game that I wanted to without the dialogue heavy nature of the original demo. And I could rapidly iterate on this with the web technology stuff and not making it a final product. All of that is throwaway code, like 100% throwaway code. I wouldn't even release that onto itch. I'm not putting it anywhere but in my own repository where I can mess with it and then show it to people in person to kind of get a feel for what I might be missing. But it is a closed, broken piece of code, and that is a-okay. It proves the points that I was trying to do. So what did I learn from all of this? Feedback is spectacular. I mean, it stings when it's not, positive upfront, but if it's constructive, it allows you to iterate faster. You learn what you want to be building, if what you're building resonates and is getting across to the people that you want to get across to. Second thing I learned, don't fall into the trap of falling in love with your code. Your code is disposable. It is a means to an end, especially early on before you actually have a game that feels good. Assume that you will never let a player touch that it will never make it into production. I've got 20 years of software development experience behind me. Your first versions are never necessarily the ones that will make it to production. However, I fell into that trap anyway. I was sure that, maybe my ego got the best of me. I'm not sure. You start to think maybe I can save time by just writing good code the first time. And that just doesn't make any sense. Maybe some of you out there are those brilliant programmers that can just get it. And maybe there are elements of code that you can pull eventually if you're using the same platform or the same language or whatever. But in my case, I'm learning how to do game coding. That's one skill set that I'm developing. And game design is a second skill set. And without the game design, I don't know what I'm building. Yes, I know I could release a web game and there's stories around that. Not interested in doing that. That's not what I'm trying to do. I'm trying to create a game using the Godot game engine. There's better tools, and that game engine tool is that's where I want it to live. But I can't rapidly iterate on that code because I just don't have the experience and the knowledge to do that yet. Maybe one day, but that day's not today. And that's okay. Before I end the video, I want to thank everyone for writing comments and everything in that last video. There was so much good advice from some experts and some players and just good, honest words that really sunk in with me. And I really want to highlight a comment that I would call marked helpful. It was really succinct and small, but made a lot of impact on me, and I really liked it. This comment is from Mayor Awesome. Good to get further away than your nose from your own stuff once in a while. Sometimes you can't smell your own stink. Game dev is hard. There was some great advice in these comments, but that one really struck true. It just summarized everything I learned from that last game. You gotta step away. You gotta put it in front of people. You gotta explore what else is out there and just get away from your own thing. And otherwise you can't smell your own stink. I just love how succinct that was. It just really spoke true to me. So thanks, Mayor Awesome, and everyone else that commented on the video. Please continue to do that. I love the comments. I read them all. They're great. And with that, I'm gonna wrap this video up. So thanks so much for watching. Click subscribe and stuff like that. There's also a link down below if you want to get notified. I'm setting up a mailing list for the game. Soon there will be some actual Coco Boco Studio stuff. But in the meantime, thank you for watching and have a great rest of your day.